Saludos y bienvenidos a esta programación de Crafted in Him TV.
Esto es un aviso de responsabilidad. Aceptamos todos sus comentarios, pero si no está de acuerdo con alguna expresión en esta programación, está en todo su derecho.
Así que por favor, respete nuestras expresiones así como respetamos las suyas. Sin embargo, si vemos un comentario totalmente inapropiado, será eliminado.
Así que disfruten esta semilla.
Shalom.
Well, welcome everybody. This is officially a youth takeover. I promise you that I'm not my mom in 1985. I'm me, Daira Mendoza, for those of you that don't know me. Again, this is a youth takeover. I'm taking over, and we're doing it in English. This is like the first time ever doing it in Destiny time, so yay! So again, welcome to Destiny Design. Again, my name is Daira. Before we start, I want to make sure that you guys are all aware that please like and share this program as well as our other programs in Grafted in Him TV. And if you're a parent right now, that I'm sure there's a lot of moms out there listening to this program because they listen to my mom all Mondays, I'm sure of it. Please share this seed and share this seed with your kids, your youth, because I'm here to spread what I have learned in my life and spread what I've learned through the Bible, through what God has taught me in my life. And I'm really appreciative about the chance to be here, to be able to speak about it, and nothing. I'm really excited, and please give this video to your kids if they want to watch it. I don't know, maybe they don't, but maybe they do, I swear. Okay, so what better way to start this message than by defining what youth is? And I feel like I never get to do that. I feel like sometimes when I talk about the youth or I talk to the youth, I never really define what youth is. And even though it's very straightforward, I still want to get down to the basics. So, youth is the period between childhood and maturity. 2 key points right here. We're in the middle. This is the early period of existing, growth, and development. And another key word here is development. Because all the stages in life are very important. They're very salient for us, literally, to have our existing time here. And I feel like a stage in our life that is very crucial, at least when developing and understanding your feelings and emotions, is when you're in youth. So that's between childhood and maturity. And this is also around the age of 10 and 12 where the limbic system is developing. And this is why majority of our emotions are off charts, sometimes low, sometimes high. Our hormones are everywhere, especially for girls. So this is the stage where most guidance is really needed from parents. And I know that a lot of the guidance is obviously needed through childhood, but when we really think that we don't need it, we actually need it the most. So I think that's really important for parents to understand and for us, the youth, to understand, especially us girls, that we have these hormones. We're very emotional by nature. So it's very important for us to, at this stage, to understand what we're dealing with. So to continue, one of the things that really broadens the spectrum of how youth works is that even though we're developing our limbic system around this early stage in life of 10 and 12, we never really realize the maturity level that everybody is at. So girls tend to mature way sooner than guys do, and I feel like a lot of people know that already. But it is not talked about a lot, and we need to take that into accountability as well when making decisions. So maturity develops between like around the ages of 20 for girls. Guys may be a lot sooner than that. Depending on who you surround yourself with and who guided you in life, that's really depending on how mature you can be. But biologically speaking, mostly 20s. So this is what brings me to how us, the youth, is really meant to analyze ourselves. Now, I speak it in my perspective because I'm me and I've lived my life myself. But I hope that you guys can apply what I say to your lives as well, because I know everybody has a different progress in life and they develop differently. So, analyzing who we are can be one of the most difficult things to do. And we tend to see everyone and everything from what we think is a one-way mirror. And I feel like humans, as a natural nature of humans, is to judge others first than to judge yourself or to analyze yourself. And for humans, our nature as well is to control things. We want things to go our way, only our way or the highway. And we never tend to consider, at least in these stages in life, we never consider as much other people and how we never really analyze ourselves, which I think is very crucial for development of a personality and character in general. So sometimes we are better at analyzing others for what they do than we do with ourselves. And sometimes that's very unhealthy. And we have to remind ourselves that before we get to analyze anyone else, we have to do those steps ourselves and show others that they can trust us to help them analyze themselves and not just be on the outside one-way mirror and be like, you're doing this wrong without actually helping that person. So analyze how we act, how we talk, how we react, how we think, and how we feel. And I want to get into the baby steps. Like how does this all start? Because I feel like a lot of the times we talk about what's happening now and like, oh, don't just forget about your past and whatever. Although you can't really forget about your past, but you can forgive. And one of the things that I want to focus on today is how it all starts. So, and here in Grafted in the family, we always talk about home, having a family, how everything starts at home. And so, the way we are, the way we analyze ourselves, we reflect our home in a way, and we reflect the teachings of our parents and our guardians.
But we are treated in the home, how we are treated in the home is a good predictor on how we are going to act with people outside. So, with parents, if you are surprised that your child is acting or your youth member in the household is acting a very different way from what you're teaching them in the home, outside, don't be surprised because there may have been something that was missing. You might find yourself, and I can speak from experience that I've had a lot of times where myself as a girl, I've had to try to compare myself with other people, with other girls. And I went outside knowing that my teachings in the home, I was taught to not do certain things like that and not to compare myself because I have a very loving family, a very loving parents that teach me my worth. But I still went outside and I still went and compared myself, still knowing my worth, yet doing it because it was a trend, if that makes sense. So I want to get into Proverbs 22:6, which says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." And this is where this verse really does give confidence to parents, and I say parents too because although we are youth, we are going to be parents one day, and these are things to consider. Whether what was taught to us was beneficial or not, we stick with those conducts years and years later. That is why childhood and youth are both very crucial stages in our lives, because those are the stages where parents are supposed to be guiding us, because we don't come out the womb knowing how to do things, so we need people to guide us with the correct principles, with the correct knowledge. And so one thing that has been talked about before here is that the emotions parents have before they even conceive us is an influence as to why we act the way we act. And one of the first times that I had like an eye-opening experience was when I researched why that happens. And I talked about it to the youth here before. Once I started studying psychology, was that when parents, or when they get married, there are some cultures that would, once they got married, before they got into the ceremony, they would separate the groom and the bride for a little bit, just so that they can compose themselves and have the best attitudes, the best emotions that they possibly could, physically be healthy, so that when they were together and they were to conceive a child, they would produce a very smart and disciplined child along the way without any emotions attached to them, without, from the parents. So I thought it was really interesting to see, because myself as an 18-year-old girl, I never really thought about that. And seeing that information and how that's even proven through the Bible, it's eye-opening, because not only do I see that with what I'm doing right now as a fruit, but I can do that with my kids as well. I'm conscious of what I'm doing. I'm conscious of what consequences I might produce with my kids. And those are things that even though as youth we're not doing right now, we're not planning to do right now, in the future we will. So these are things to keep in mind. And some examples I want to give is when the very common phrases of, oh, you act just like your mom, or oh, you act just like your dad, and those, even though sometimes it's made of like jokes and stuff, we still take that, we still get confused, and we still put away the reality of it. When we think about that, we have to come to a conclusion that, yeah, you do get things from your parents, but what are you gonna do to get rid of the bad and put in the just? But to stop right here for a second, I want to tell everybody that's in Facebook right now to go ahead and jump into YouTube, Grafted in TV, so that you can continue watching this seed. We will not continue this seed on Facebook, but we will continue in YouTube. So we'll see you soon. Shalom. So to continue in YouTube, hi everybody in YouTube, I want to continue with Ephesians 6, 1-4. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother," this is the first commandment with a promise, "that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land." But it does not end there. Just wait. "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in discipline and instruction of the Lord." And that is key right there, to bring them up in discipline and instruction of the Lord. And it's one of those things that if you don't like what you're getting, change what you are giving. Right? So when you base discipline on God's instructions, your children will give you what is righteous, and even in the long term. So if you want your child to produce righteousness and in their decisions, you have to give them what they need, not what they want. So one of the main examples that I thought about when thinking about this phrase was, and Ezekiel has used this before, is everything that you give to a woman, she will multiply. And a female is designed by God to receive. So whatever she receives, she will multiply and then gives that back. So a man gives her a sperm and she receives it, multiplies it, and gives a baby. She does not give back a sperm, she gives back a whole baby. You give her groceries and she'll give you a meal. You give her a house, she'll give you a home. You give her frustration and you know what you will get. You know, not the best thing. And so again, if you don't like what you're getting, change what you are giving. And with children and youth, it's around the same system. Whatever discipline is given to us, we process it and most likely multiply it into something bigger, and we give it back. So whatever is taught to us, we will multiply, and we make it, if it's bad, we'll probably make it worse. If it's good, we'll make it better. So some other aspects of the youth that make me think about these things is influence, because influence is something that I've noticed here in Legacy, our youth group here, is that influence is a big aspect of our lives, or was a big aspect in our lives. And I wanted to, before I get into that, I want to define what influence is. And it's the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. And one key word here is behavior. You don't think about influence until you think about behavior. Influence has a lot to do with the effect of behavior. Why we behave certain ways? Why? Well, we got influenced by this one person, or we're influenced by our parents to do certain things, or we're influenced, our whole lives we're influenced by whoever is living with us, firstly. And then when we go out in the world, especially the youth, because we have all these social media trends and stuff like that, we're influenced by those things as well. So we make decisions every day, every minute, and every second of our lives. And that is something that we don't tend to think about a lot. We make decisions every minute, every second, every day. And even though it's not, at least in a day, maybe it's not drastic, but it is affecting how your day goes, and your weeks, and your months, and your years. And a lot of the negative things we say we deal with is based off our decisions. Sometimes we victimize ourselves for anything that is going on that is not going our way, but we decide to be in that state anyways. And there are things in life, like I give that consideration that there are things in life that you can't control, but for the things that you can control, I suggest we think about that through a little bit more. I want to go into, because we'll explain that a little bit deeper, Romans 6:15-16. And it says, "Well then, since God's grace has set us free from the law, does that mean we can go sinning? Of course not. Don't you realize that you become a slave of whatever you choose to obey? You can be slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey God, which leads to righteous living." And we are giving a choice, which is why everything we do every single day is a choice. We either choose to be slave to sin and leading to death, or we choose to obey God and live a righteous life. So whatever it is that you focus on becomes what you obey to the most. You can obey to food because it controls you. You can obey to stress because it controls you. You can obey to your friends because they control you. You can obey to sin because it controls you. But when we have our mindset and focus on God and what he has predestined for us, which is key, what he has predestined for us is greater than what we have destined for ourselves. Because I feel like one of the biggest struggles in the youth is that we focus on what we want, but little do we know God has a purpose for those that are his. Some examples that came to mind when talking about influence in general, we had a legacy activity not too long ago, and our dear counselors were gracious enough to give us a seat and talk to us a little bit about influence, discipline, and decision making. And one of the points that was brought up a lot in that we had a bonfire, so in that bonfire and that activity was that yes, we are influenced by people, but we decide for them to influence us. It's us who decide who's going to influence our lives, what is going to influence our lives. It's really us in the moment where we're like choosing what we want. And one of the things that I think almost everybody talked about that day was friends. Our friends were, bad friends, getting in with the wrong crowd and not being able to separate yourself from that crowd, knowing that it was wrong. And some people brought up the fact that they knew it was wrong and they went and did it. Some people mentioned that they knew it was wrong and they felt that and they separated themselves from it. And that's when you know that you have life in you. And in myself, from personal experience, I've had that happen, obviously. And I know a lot of girls struggle with this as well when talking about our worth, because we tend to compare ourselves a lot to other girls in the world, more specifically. And it's unhealthy, because I've had friendships where they've influenced the way they are to me, and I've brought that environment into my home, and I was just always in anger. I would go into my room and I was always angry. And then if I was angry, I didn't want to talk to my parents or my sister or my family members. I just wanted to be alone. And if I was home, I wanted to be outside doing something with my friends, my girl, friends. And if I wasn't with them, I wasn't part of the group. If I wasn't with them, I was trapped in this home. And I know like some of them up to this day, I know in hindsight, they probably think I've been brainwashed, which is not true. But as a girl that had experienced that, I had experienced self-esteem issues and me questioning my worth, because I was choosing to be influenced by those people, because all they wanted to do was compare themselves to Instagram models in general, and actors and models, and they were all Christian. That's the thing. They were all Christian, and they were like, oh, But when it came down to it, when I asked them about it, they were not sure themselves about their worth, and they would give themselves away to boys, grasp attention of boys. And I'm thankful that I don't think I was ever like that. I never really was the one to grab the attention of boys or trying to be the center of attention. I was more of an observer, and while in the meaning of getting influenced at the same time by those girls. But one of the things that is really common in the youth, especially with girls, because I know this is a girl chat, is that comparing and contrasting. When you think you're not worth it, when you know, and that's the thing, we know that we're enough, we know that we are worth it because we are God's daughters, yet we, since we don't see him, we go out in the world and we say that that's not enough. I want the consideration and the approval of everybody else. And that is something that, even though there's people right now that don't understand, there's girls right now that don't understand it and will go on with your day without realizing that, when something happens and it hurts you and you think back, oh, I probably shouldn't have, you probably shouldn't have done that, you realize that the only approval that you need is God's. And I want to go to Romans 12:2. It says, and I use this one a lot, ever since we started legacy videos back then. Romans 12:2 says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. And one of the things that reading this came into my mind was how this, when we say to other people, and I know that when I got told this a lot, like, don't copy the behaviors of this world, like, be God's daughter, do obey to him and do what's righteous. I was like, yeah, but I want to do what I want. That's the issue. We want to do what we want. But when you really come to realize it, if you have the life of God inside in you and you want to do his will in the long run, you have to understand that you're not going to do what you want. You're going to do what he wants, whether you like it or not. It's just a process of accepting what he wants for you. 1 Timothy 4:12 says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. And this is a big one, because once you're set as an example to other believers, at least for me, I guess right now I'm an example to young girls, young teenagers and youth. It's hard to set an example, but it's worth the struggle, because it's keeping you accountable of what you have to do, and it's worth it because it's for God. So when it's for God, everything that you do just becomes easy and it becomes second nature. And then there's some people that say that they do set an example, yet they go outside and they do horrible things, and that's not an example of what God is. And we have to understand that who we are as kids of God and children of God, we as a whole represent him. So if we do something that's not right out there, that's going to represent our God, and that's not what we want. He's our God, and even though we don't see him, that doesn't mean that it takes it away. And the question that we all need to think about is, how can you know that you are setting an example for, in quote, with the verse, the believers? When you walk, what you talk. And you've heard that phrase, talk what you walk, or walk what you talk. And this is one of the most difficult things, as a human to do, because, and when you know that you're declaring over yourself and others, like, when you know what things you're declaring over them and they're negative, that's when you really, in hindsight, you're like, dang, that's not right. But as a human, that's difficult to understand. That's difficult to get over. The obstacle is difficult to get over, because we're always set on that, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want. It feels wrong, but I'm still going to do it because it's the trend. But when you think back, it's difficult to not forget about it. So we have to be careful with trends and what's going around, and when it comes to mental health. And this is one of the things that, again, is really important for us to understand, because one of the big things that is going around right now is to say, oh, I'm depressed, or oh, I have social anxiety, or I'm antisocial. Unless you have a prescribed form of it through a professional that says otherwise, those are things that you should really think about when you're saying that, because you're declaring that over yourself, you're affirming that over yourself and others. I can't go around because it's funny and say, oh, I'm depressed, or I'm antisocial. You don't even know what half that stuff means. So when I look into the DSM-5, which is like a psychological, I'm not going to explain that right now, but it's a DSM-5. When you look into the criteria for antisocial, it's a disorder. Antisocial personality disorder. It's a disorder where, think about the Joker in the movie. That's what that is. And if you tell me I'm antisocial, you best know that I don't want to be friends with you or be anywhere near you, because that's what that means. And of course I have knowledge, but I'm here now to spread that because you don't know what false information you're bringing out and affirm it over yourself, because the more you affirm it over yourself, the more true it becomes. What you say, even if it's a joke, can affect you eventually to have these things. And this is why we have to strive to be mentally strong. Young girls, you have the capacity to be mentally strong, even if people say that you can't have the capacity to do so. If God chose you and we're his daughters, we have the capacity to be mentally strong because that's what he wants. And affirming otherwise is going to affect that. I'm going to give you a list of what mentally strong people are like. Mentally strong people are flexible and constantly adapting, are more consistent with their words and promises. They learn from their mistakes quicker. They don't have time to talk about others and their success because they are too busy focusing in the purpose given to them by God. Mentally strong people are not jealous of other successes. They don't blame God for every small defeat. They never stop when they are tired. They stop when they are done. They recognize their process. They don't look for precisions, rather they look for what is up to them. And finally, mentally strong people see things for what they are. So even though these things are hard to apply because, again, we're not perfect, but we're on the way to be perfect, these things, one by one, you can check them off, because if you say who you say you are as a child of God, you need to see things for what they are. So if you start affirming things that are not the way they are, saying that you're antisocial or depressed or anything like that, you're not worth it, that is, you lost the point, okay? So everything that is taught through the Word of God requires mental strength. And it seems to me that it is very hard for us to accomplish these simple things. And yes, again, a lot of the excuses are, I'm imperfect, whatever. But in many aspects of our lives, yeah, God chose us because he knew that we have the mental and spiritual capacity and potential to do so, in which many people in the world don't. And that is something that we never talk about. Oh, here we do. But people out there, the so-called believers, they don't talk about how others are not chosen for this lifestyle. And we are very fortunate to have this lifestyle. And as youth members, it is crucial for us to understand that now and not be bothered or distracted about what's happening out there and focus what's happening between this connection right here. Because at the end of the day, when you leave this world, you leave this body, what are you going to say? When you are I don't know how that works, but when you're face to face with God and he's going to ask you, what did you do with what I gave you? What are you going to say? I went out with my friends and that's what I wanted to do, not what you wanted to do. That seems pretty shameful to me. So it's better to fix these things now. It's better to find our worth now than later. Because it can save our generations, and we can save our generations, and we can make a healthy habit. But it's up to us because, again, we make those decisions, and those decisions stack up. You can either be a slave to sin or obey God and live a righteous life. When we put God as our priority every day, we can learn how to use our mind wisely. We must set our minds with our spirit, not our flesh, and that is said in Romans 8:6. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. And that's what a lot of people want, peace. So if you want life and peace, I suggest that you do what you have to do. Because when you have knowledge and you don't do something, that's sin. When there's a sin in life and you know you can't do that and you do it knowing that you did it, that's when where you went wrong. And as a person that's like dealt more with friendship influences, I can say that is not all youth struggles with. I know that for sure. There's other aspects in their lives. I know that for me, in my life, there's been that pressure in aspects of how to compare myself to my parents or stuff like that. And through time, I've noticed that that's not what's meant for me. I know that whatever God has planned for me is for me, and everybody's process is different. And I've learned that through living this life, through living through the instructions. I was born into this, but I've only noticed how to apply it a little bit more and to really speak up more, like a couple years ago, when my sister, you guys have seen her, and Gabriela we've been through this process basically together, and Angie Silva too, and we've encountered moments where we've seen each other's faults and flaws, and that happens. But it's not our job to trip the other up. It's our job as sisters to build each other up and help each other out, because we're not the only ones going through this. My process is not the same as your process, but there's things that we can prevent to help us through these processes, because I think youth in general, we have this stereotype that we all get mad at, but sometimes it's true, where it's like we don't understand anything and we always think about ourselves. And that's another thing, that we have a lot of egocentrism. And egocentrism is seen a lot in children, like toddlers, babies, And we say that we're the adults here and we know everything. Yeah, but that's not valid until you stop the egocentrism. Like, you need to put that ego away. Because in order for you to act mature, you need to not only see others, but you need to see yourself, and you need to analyze yourself. And one of the things that, as a girl again, obviously, I want to clarify, because a lot of the struggles that girls at this age have is the stereotype that they need to have a quote-unquote man or a boyfriend. They need to be in a relationship this early in time. Well, I can assure you that you don't need to at all, okay? Like, I've lived all my life, all my 18 years of life without a boyfriend or a relationship, and I've done just fine. If you are a girl that is doing that to fill a void, I suggest that you don't. That's unhealthy, because that's where you usually find toxic relationships. And I can assure you that the girls here in the youth, we've talked about it a lot, where in the moment when you live in the world, it seems like that's the only option. Like, oh, you have to. But once you set your mind on God and what He has predestined for you, when you look back, you see everybody in the world in front of you, and you look back, you step back, and you're like, why? Right? And that was my thought of thinking, like, why? Because when I used to be friends with friends that were like that, I was intrigued by the fact that they expected everybody to be like that. And they were asking me, like, why aren't you in a relationship? Or, like, why don't your parents let you date? Or why? And it was that pressure, that stereotypical and social pressure, where it was like, you need to. No, we don't need to. I'm just fine with my family and God. That's all I need for right now. And I know through time, when you wait and you're patient, because that's the key, when you're patient, God will bring somebody to you, as long as they obey God, as long as they love God, because when they obey, they love God. Because once you see that, you're like, that's affirmation to me. Okay, let's do this then. But, and this isn't my perspective, but if it's not like that, what's gonna, make me want to like someone that I know is not gonna put their head first into what God is, into who God is, into His scriptures? To me, that seems like way out of pocket. I cannot see that. And that was my thing, is that was not my mentality back then. My mentality did a whole 360 back a couple years ago when I was still in high school, to the point where it was weird, because my process was between it was all my life, but like that aspect was like between the 10th and 11th grade, where I was noticing these things, and I was, in conflict, and I was in a lot of anger. I was in my room a lot with that anger, until like 11th grade and 12th grade, where I was suddenly sunken in, and I started losing friends, right, one after the other. It was just rapid fire, losing one after the other. And sometimes it was my doing, where it was like, I don't want to be in this friendship anymore. And when that friendship ended, they were like, you're brainwashed, blah, 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 blah. And I can say now, in the moment I was confused, but now I know that I'm not brainwashed, but the things people do to try to convince you to do what's wrong is like horrendous. But I know that a lot of girls struggle with that, and a lot of, youth in general struggle with that now, the fact that they think that they owe something to their friends, no, you don't owe anything to them. The only person that you owe things in your life to, you owe your life to God. You don't owe your life to friends or, the media or anything like that. And now, I know like people are saying that's easier said than done, but that's what I said. I said it's easier said than done, and I did it. And I'm still in the same process. I'm going up, up, up every single day. And one of the key things here is not to make excuses. Because if you are centering your life and your thoughts on just making excuses, it's going to slow down your process. Oh, I did this because my parents were like this. No, yeah, your parents were like that, but now you have knowledge. Now what are you going to do? So there is no other way. I know that myself, I've realized that sometimes I deal with anger that I don't even know where it came from. Anger and different emotions that I know probably came from that first aspect that I explained between parents and conceiving and the emotions that they have. All those things are transferred into the baby. And I know that it's far thinking, but it's true. And there's things in life that I know come from that seed, but I don't have an excuse as to why to act like that way, because I have knowledge. I know how to deal with it. I just have to put it into practice. And I have to affirm to myself that I am worth more than anger, than jealousy, than comparing myself to others. And obviously comparing can lead you to coveting. So, and that's sinning again. So you see where this is going? And it's not healthy for the youth. It's not healthy for anybody really. But the reason why I wanted to focus this message on the youth, not only because I deal with the youth and I am a youthful girl, but it's important for us to think different aspects of our lives and to take away the excuses. Take away the excuses and just do what you have to do. And for us girls, take away the excuse that you need to compare yourself to others. You don't. God is enough, and if you don't think so, maybe this isn't for you. We have to think about, yes, we have influence in the world within our biology, but it does not have to dictate how you live your life. You dictate your life the way God wants you to live your life. He gave you a purpose, and He predestined. You're destined in the sign. Look at that. It's even in the program name. And you have to put that into practice, because there's people that have done it, and it's not impossible. God is the God of the impossible, and it's possible for you to transform. Again, Romans 12:2. I read it, and I always use it. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person. And this is key. But let God transform you. If you don't let God transform you, you're going to stay in the same position your whole life. This transformation, this transforming yourself, right, comes from denying who you are. That's what that is. And that's what I did. I had to deny who I was to live this life, because living a life with God is a lot better than living a life in sin with no life, basically. So it's just that idea where it's like you just need to let that go. You need to deny who you are and live your life for God. Surrender your life to God, and then everything really comes into place. Yes, there's bumps in the road, but aren't all roads like that, So again, the verse keeps saying, then you will learn to know God's will for you. And that's another aspect that a lot of people and a lot of young girls out there say, I don't know what's next for me. I don't know what I need, what I want. I don't know when I'm gonna get married, or I don't know when I'm gonna get a boyfriend, or I don't know what my purpose in this life is. And they're always focused on the materialistic stuff. But when you let God transform your life, yourself into a new person, you will know clearly what His will is for you. And then it says, which is good and pleasing and perfect. All the answers are there. And all we have to do is just let ourselves go. Deny who we are and just transform ourselves to be better. Because we can't be stuck in the same state every day trying to, accustom ourselves into the world and, that seems better. But, everybody, I never try to use this statement, but everybody just seems like robots out there. If you ask me, like, everybody acts the same way. And you have to act that certain way because that's what the world wants. That's what the trends want. No. No, when you're a child of God, you step outside of that circle, and that's when you really realize. And don't think you're stepping out by yourselves. There's other people waiting out there for you too. There's a whole generation of the righteous out there, and we can't think about this like we're going through it alone, and we can't victimize ourselves. So that's all I have for today. I want to thank my mama, Annette Mendoza, for bringing me on here to fill in the space today. I don't think this has ever been done, but I liked it. I like the opportunity to speak out to the youth once in a while, and English version as well. I don't think this has been done in a while, and I'm great at English. I love to speak English because I speak English every single day at school, so this is perfect. But nothing. Please like and share this program with youth. This is for everybody, but share with the youth. This seed, I know, will be a blessing to their lives. And nothing. I'm going to say what my mom says. Abrazos. Shalom.